All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Monday, March 17th. We have a 10-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to all of my final plays, so when I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, absolutely free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3 for more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. All right, so to recap yesterday, the picks are pretty damn good. Now, Hornets +20, an alternate line in the parlay that we threw in, being the only team that does not come through for us, which means next time we review the DNB graveyard, they're probably going to be on there, but we hit with Cam Johnson, Shea, the Hornets and Clippers under, as well as Toumani Camara over 16.5 points. A few other things we talked about in the video, just didn't roll with ourselves, came through as well. So pretty good day yesterday, picks-wise. Unfortunately, I know I told you guys, hopefully I'm feeling better and better. I feel like crap today. I mean, I think we're still a little bit sick here. So the picks were good, but still not feeling the best. So hopefully we can get through this one and battle through here as we got some sort of little cold or something like that. But I'm sure that we will. To keep the vibes high here, the ride of the day, let's pump in some crowd noise. Ride of the day also comes through from Tyler here. Dyson Daniels over 9.5 rebounds and assists. I believe he finished with 6 and 7, so 13. Shout out to Tyler here. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it's simple. Just use hashtag ride of the day or ROTD. Either one down in the comments. I jump on board with one person's play each and every day. Give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. Also shout you out right here over on my Twitter/X at EvGuyBoston. And you get a shout out on the Guy Boston Sports site with the final plays. If you win, like Tyler did, we continue to roll with your plays until you do lose. So looking forward to seeing what Tyler drops today. But even though we're rolling with Tyler, 2 reasons why you should still get your ride of the days down in the comments. If Tyler doesn't come through with one on time, we have to jump on board with someone new, right? Let's not make that the case, Tyler. You're on fire. But secondarily, like, tons of plays down in the comments are helping more and more people out. So get those hashtag ride of the days down in the comments. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this slate, guys. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button again. Apologize if the voice sounds kind of off. I feel like we're doing okay right now, but this is the beginning of the video. Apologize if the energy's low. We're doing our best out here. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Started off with what I would consider an interesting one. We have the Knicks here, 7.5 point favorites. The total way down at 210. Some injuries to note. Jalen Brunson out in this one. And then on the Miami side of things, Jovic still out, Alec Burks out, and then Andrew Wiggins listed as questionable. I do think that this is a spot in which we could see a close game, but I kind of feel like the Knicks may close this one out. So I'm on the fence. I'll be honest with you there. I ultimately do land at looking at the Knicks minus the points. They haven't been playing the best basketball, but if we flip it over to Miami, they really haven't been playing the best basketball either. And all we need is the Knicks to kind of lack in the paint for this game. And Karl-Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, guys that drive, even Bridges from the mid-range, should be able to get it any way that they want, right? So I will lean towards the Knicks solely because of that paint presence. This is a Miami team that hasn't been playing all that phenomenally in the paint. If Miami had been trying to score in the paint, it could be different because this is a Knicks team that's allowing over 70% to their opponents in the paint over the last 10 games. That ain't all that great. But Miami, 24th in terms of their last 10 games shooting at the restricted area. So yeah, I think that Miami, probably keeps us closer in most of the game, but the Knicks ultimately make big shots when they need to. In terms of a total, it's very, very low down there at 210. We look at these two teams. Miami's defense was playing pretty well, but 125 to Memphis, right? They did stop Boston, only held them to 103. New York's offense has been hit or miss, especially with no Brunson. Don't know exactly where to go with this one. I think because that's so low, and we still do have some shooting zones that look favorable for the Knicks, I'm going to slightly lean towards the over, but this is probably a game that I would peg at, like, I don't know, 215, right? Like a couple baskets over, but it's not like I see this one going 225 or anything like that. Player prop wise, I could be convinced of a Tyler Hero play today. No Wiggins. This is a Knicks team that is pretty bad at defending the pick and roll ball handler. 25th in score percentage, 20th in effective field goal percentage. That's obviously where Tyler Hero, how he scores a lot of his points here. The Knicks actually 30th in terms of just against pick and roll ball handlers overall. We've seen a few, pick and roll type ball handlers torch them recently. Desmond Bane, Steph Curry did it a couple times, or even just by position, we've seen a lot of guards do pretty well against this Knicks team. So yeah, and throw in the fact that this year he's had a 34-point game and a 22-point game against them. That 22-point game, he shot the ball 24 times, only scored, did score 22 points, so he's right on the hook, right? But 33% from the field, and he shot 18% from three. Tyler Hero should do a little bit better than that today, one would think. All right, Minnesota taking on Indiana. Definitely very important to keep an eye on the injury report for this one. Indiana is in a tough spot. Tyrese Haliburton, questionable. Nesmith, questionable. Miles Turner, questionable. You look at who's out, Pascal Siakam. So they're losing quite possibly, if Haliburton doesn't play, Turner doesn't play, their top three guys. If one of those guys doesn't play, two of their three, because Pascal Siakam's already ruled out, right? You do have Minnesota on a back-to-back. Mike Conley's listed as probable. We'll see how that shakes out. I don't think that's going to be the biggest of deals either way. If you're worried about the back-to-back for Minnesota, so far this year that hasn't really been a problem. They've covered in 58.3% of their games. I will say Indiana, with rest advantage over their opponent, though, does look okay, 61.5% in terms of cover rate. Head-to-head, we haven't seen, too much of this season, but it's been, in the past, Minnesota all the way. They've won 6 straight and covered in, I believe, 5 straight. So this is a spot in which I say, okay, well, Minnesota, yeah, they played yesterday, but they did exactly what we said they'd do in the video, right? They took it to Utah. We saw, Anthony Edwards only play 30 minutes. Yes, only play. McDaniels, 26. Gobert, 25. Julius Randle, I think he played like 20 minutes. Dante DiVincenzo, 24. So, yeah, I think Ant went for like 40 plus, if I'm not mistaken either. So these guys got some rest. I don't think I have a problem with yet another favorite in this spot in Minnesota. If we look at these two teams, obviously, on the floor, Indiana's perimeter defense is actually pretty good, which is what I said in yesterday's video about Minnesota. They're turning right back into that perimeter defense. But, Indiana, I don't see exactly where their points come from, whereas Minnesota obviously has that go-off ability, and they can score from both, spots, up top and down low. Whereas Indiana, especially with guys being banged up, potentially not playing and all that, I think there's a little bit too much concern on the injury side of things. So give me Minnesota minus the 7.5, total sitting at 228. Well, you have Indiana who likes to run. And Minnesota, not exactly a team that runs in guns, but they will. And they scored 128 yesterday. You look at their recent games, 128, 118, 115, 141. Those are the last 4. I could see them putting up a decent number here, as Indiana has allowed 114 or more in 3 of their last 4 games. The only game they didn't was to Philadelphia, and that might just be because Philadelphia stinks. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm going to lean slightly towards the over 228 in this one. When it comes to player props, nothing that I love. I would probably like Rudy Gobert. You can maybe get plus money or even money for this too. Over 11.5 points, or even a double-double, I don't mind. If we don't see Miles Turner, I still like it even if we do see Miles Turner, but no Siakam, I do think I probably start to fall back towards maybe that rebounds, so maybe like a double-double or something like that, or just even his over, I think can get 9.5 rebounds. So something in the shape of Rudy Gobert, maybe Julius Randle, depending on what his rebound line is. I don't have that up, but if it's like 5.5, 6.5, I'd consider that as well. I do think a banged-up Turner and no Siakam, it's going to be tough for this Pacers team to win on the glass against a Minnesota team that already should be cooking them on the glass even when healthy. All right, guys, real quick, before we do move into the rest of the games, I want to talk to you about Sleeper picks specifically. They have a free square Kobe White 0.5 points for today, but still they're offering that play 5 get $55 promo, which is a great deal in the market right now. If you guys don't know what Sleeper Picks is, it's really cool if you like player props. You select 2 or more players, you pick more or less based on their set projection. So obviously Kobe White today, we're probably looking at more than 0.5 points, right? You put 2 or more into an entry, the more you win, 3 for 5, 4 for 5, that type of thing, the more you do get paid out. Hell, you can go 5 for 5. You can win up to 1,000x over on Sleeper, guys. And again, you play $5 as a new customer, you get 55, 11xing that initial entry. And if that play cashes, you still keep that, and you got a nice little bankroll building now in Sleeper. So go ahead and check it out. If it's available in your state and you're not on it yet, you're absolutely missing out. I've been using Sleeper for years, one of my favorite DFS player prop apps out there. So check it out, guys. That link will be down below in the description as well as the pinned comment. And yeah, I would highly recommend it. I think you're going to regret it if you don't jump on. So go check out Sleeper, link down below. Let's go ahead and jump back into the rest of these games. You got 8 more. All right, Houston taking on Philly, if I'm being completely honest, which I like to do. I don't have too much interest in this one. This is a spot in which, yeah, I can't really get to the Philly side of things, but I also would say that many points just seems like it's a hell of a lot to lay. No Amin Thompson still for Houston, so we'd probably consider another look at Jalen Green in terms of his assist, which we've been doing okay with that, right? I think out of the couple games in a row now, he's cashed it in 2 of 3, if I'm not mistaken, so decent little hit right there, I guess we should say. So that's probably a player prop I would look at. It's kind of the only thing that I have on the tip of my tongue right now. This Philadelphia team coming off a win against Dallas, but it's like that Dallas team is arguably more injured than them. Houston in this one, winning 6 in a row. They've covered in 5 of their last 6. It's just a little bit too many points, but the thing that I don't really like is that this Houston team was looking good, and then Chicago, who's not that very good of a team, played them really tight in Houston in their last game. So it's like, is Philly going to kind of play them tight and gritty? I mean, Philly on back-to-backs this season, it's not like they're world beaters whatsoever, but they are, this is a huge number. I'm assuming all of their back-to-backs haven't been nearly 16-point lines. So yeah, I guess I would say by default, because I can't get there to Houston, I'd take Philly because it's just too big of a number. But honestly, this is the only way that I probably play this is, again, potentially thinking Jalen Green, right? Or this would be, I guess we could bump Houston's line down and put it in one of those, slimy parlays that we do where we take a couple big favorites or an underdog and just absolutely nuke an alternate line. Maybe that's the case. But if I had a gun to my head and had to pick something, I might even just take the 15 points. I know it sounds crazy, but it is what it is. This is a weird one. Let me know in the comments if you guys have something that you're liking in this one, but I could see this being like a 13-point win for Houston, and it's like, damn, they dominated and just didn't cover, In terms of what we have from a total, so this Philadelphia defense, kind of concerning, right? If I read off their last 9 games here, and yes, I picked 9 because it's a good sample size and the numbers look good. 119 allowed, 119, 126, 123, 122, 132, 118, 112, 125. Houston, from an offensive perspective, they've had some big scoring games recently. Their last 3 games, 117, 133 to 111. Maybe a Houston team total. Maybe that's the move here, and we don't even have to worry about, covering 16 points or anything like that. We can just leave it there. So, yeah, like I said, probably Jalen Green, some sort of a parlay, and then whatever you want to make of the line down there. Just a little bit too much for me. I'll tell you, I don't know if I love it or whatever, but we're liking a lot of favorites in today's video so far. We do have a couple underdogs that we do like, but so far, big numbers here, and we like the favorites, other than, I guess, Houston, because we did technically lean towards the Philadelphia side of things. But this Detroit team, I think they get back on track here against New Orleans, who New Orleans was looking okay, right? Especially from a covering perspective. And then in the last, I don't know, what would we call it? In the last 2.5 weeks, things have kind of fallen off a little bit. They were like playing, are they getting better type basketball for a second, and then now in this one we do have Yves Missy questionable, Kelly Olynyk questionable, Zion Williamson questionable. This Detroit team should be able to take it to them, especially given the fact that Detroit likes to score in the paint. We know that the Pelicans do struggle in the paint, and I just listed their small forward, their power forward, and their center. If they have to go backups all down low, we should see a game in which guys that get to the hoop for this Pistons team eats, right? So I think that's going to be the case and kind of dominate the game here. If I were to look at any sort of a player prop, I would actually consider a couple things. So yes, you do have the, I guess we could say like the viability of anything with Jalen Duren, maybe over points plus rebounds, double, maybe just points for him. I think that this is a good type of matchup for him to just be an absolute beast, right? But I'd also kind of consider, and it's a little worrisome, I'll be honest, because he doesn't get the most amount of potential assists whatsoever, but Tobias Harris, 1/3 of his assists come literally at the rim, and the Pelicans stink at defending the rim. This could be a decent look for him. I mean, he hasn't played them this year, but in his last 30 games, he's had at least 3 assists, which his line is only, 2 assists. His line's only 1.5. He's had it in 21 of 30. So, yeah, I could kind of get convinced of both Tobias Harris over an assist, and then maybe Jalen Duren here over in, points plus rebounds, or his rebounds right now is 11.5. He's hit that out of his last 7 games here. He's hit it in 5 of them. His points right now, I think, is right around the same thing. Let's see, a 13.5 for plus money. He's hit that over his last 10 in 5 of those. Going up against this New Orleans team back in early-ish November, he only had 12 points against them. He shot the ball 8 times, though, right? If we look at him in his last 5 games or so, he's shooting the ball a little bit more than that. 11, 12, 10. He did have 6 last game out, but I expect him to go out there and shoot, maybe give him 10 attempts when Jalen Duren this season, right? Let's see if we can get this down pretty well. When Jalen Duren shoots the ball 10 times, Yeah, this is what we expected. He's hitting 10 of his 12 games, 83% this season, averaging 16.6. So him points plus rebounds and or double-double or points, that type of thing, I think we could get behind today as the Pistons also on the spread. Total-wise, this is probably the first one where we start to walk it back a little bit in terms of a bunch of points being scored just because we have this Detroit team that should be able to score inside. I don't think New Orleans has the most of success, so I think this one's probably a slight under lean for me. We do have this pegged at 117 to 115, so obviously a close one in terms of our score predicts. Scorepredicts.com. Predicts is spelled with an X at the end if you do want to check it out. Free game predictions each and every day. Score, spread, all that. And we also have our NBA Edge Finder for player props. So go check out scorepredicts.com. SCOREPREDIX.com. But I don't see like that algorithm, right, that we built. It's not mathing for me in terms of where those points are going to come from. The Pistons have played like they just held OKC to what, 112 or something like that. So to me, I'm not fully grasping where New Orleans points comes from. So maybe a New Orleans team total under could be a look as well. But there's a decent amount that we can consider in this game. Hell, maybe even some sort of a same game parlay. Tobias Harris like 1 assist. Jalen Duren, we knock his points and stuff down a little bit. Detroit money line, that type of thing, right? Like we like a lot. We could massage those numbers a little bit like Deshaun Watson and get something that we might like even more. All right, the game we've all been waiting for, Utah taking on Chicago. I mean, pick your poison with this one. This is definitely not the best one here. We're probably going to ultimately pass on this one in terms of putting our hard-earned bread on it. But a couple things to note. Utah is on a back-to-back. Chicago with a rest advantage over their opponent. They've covered in 60% of their games so far this season. They also have less injuries to note. Now, Utah's on the back-to-back, so we'll wait out that injury report, but it looks like it's just going to be Lonzo Ball and Josh Giddey on the injury report for Chicago, whereas Utah has Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, KJ Martin, Jaden Springer, John Collins, all listed as either questionable or out. Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler are listed as good to go, which I think is good news if you do like Utah, because this Bulls team can't stop anything in the paint. I think that's where this Utah team is going to do their damage today. But overall, what I would say is we know Chicago. They like to chuck it from three, or they did. I mean, who even knows what type of team they are now? And Utah can't stop anything from three. So if we have one team competing with threes and one team competing with twos, that threes is probably going to get the edge there. So yeah, slight lean for me towards Chicago in this one. Nothing that I'm willing to actually go down that road myself, to be honest, in terms of making that a final play. It just does not strike me as a game that we really should be messing with. One thing that we could potentially look at, Colin Sexton here. I like his rebounds plus assists. I started to look at Isaiah Collier, and I know that we've liked him in the past, and I feel like I'm late to the train on everyone, but Colin Sexton, I think, should be the guy in transition that is flying in this one. And rebounds plus assists, I'm just kind of game scripting him getting the ball and flying in transition, maybe getting a rebound and running, passing it. So, yeah, the fact that we see 7.5 rebounds plus assists, I could get convinced of that, but again, weird game, right? Now, I talked about transition. This is probably a game in which I don't mind an over here either. Where's the offense going to come from? Like I said, Utah should be able to score inside. Chicago should be able to score from outside. Not much defense being played. That's what it is. Now, this is a big number. Still two bad teams, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, Sacramento taking on Memphis. Now, Sacramento's no longer on the DNB list, so if we want to roll with them, we can. No Ja Morant in this one. I think that's probably clear just by that line at Sacramento being favored for one. Santi Aldama still listed as questionable. Scottie Pippen Jr. listed as questionable, but we do still see Desmond Bane, Wells, Jackson now healthy, and Edey down low. Sabonis also listed as good to go. So this should be a pretty good game. Memphis is going to be where I side solely because I do think that they can combat what Sacramento does down low. The Sacramento team, very good, defensively down low, but in the last 10 games here, allowing 72.3%. Now, Sabonis missed some time, so that's worth noting, but this Memphis team loves to score at the rim. Yes, no Ja Morant. We have a ton of injuries that impact what I'm saying right now, but still, I do think that this is a decent spot. I don't mind, I guess a look at another look at DeMar DeRozan. Like, we've been taking him against teams that struggle in the mid-range. Here's yet another one that we see of them struggling in the mid-range. So, yeah, I don't mind him as a player prop look, by the way. But the reason I ultimately like Memphis is because they can also shoot the three, and with Luke Kennard in the starting lineup, like, we may even see some more threes looking good from them, right? Like, he's more of a shooter than Ja Morant. I mean, quantity-wise, he probably not exactly all that crazy, but overall, in terms of shooting, yeah. So maybe this is a spot where we consider him. I will say the only thing that really bubbled to the top in terms of doing research on player props here, other than me just saying DeMar DeRozan, kind of like the Tobias Harris look. I don't mind a Jalen Wells over an assist, but at some point I know that we're just like kooky brained in the morning when we're like, oh, all these guys with low numbers, but overall, I mean, when we look at Jalen Wells, let's see, his assist line's at 1.5, right? He's been cashing that in his last 10 games here. He's looked pretty good. He's hit it in 7 of his last 10. He's averaging 2.1 assists. And what I like is a lot of his assists come from the perimeter. That's where Sacramento struggles, right? So, yeah, maybe that's a player prop look as well. So, Wells and DeRozan, 2 looks. And then Memphis, because I do think even with Ja Morant out, they compete down low but should be able to win the perimeter battle, which I think is going to be massive, especially getting 2.5 points. We turn this over to a total here. 237, I mean, I probably have this pegged right around the 235 mark. So very, very slightly into the under. We've been liking taking these unders with Memphis. They've cashed 7 of their last 10. They get very high lines, but now we don't even have Ja Morant in there to push the pace. And Sacramento at home here, we should assume that they're going to want to slow it down, right, to keep their advantage of playing by 2s. So I like the under 237. That could definitely be a final play as well. Again, a decent amount of looks in this one, even without Ja Morant in there. All right, so this is actually one that we've been looking forward to. This is probably one of, if not the better game on the slate here. Golden State taking on Denver, checking the injury report. We want to make sure that guys are good to go, and unfortunately, we do have some waiting to do. Steph, questionable. No Podziemski, Quentin Post listed as questionable as well. And then we have Murray, Brown, Gordon, and Jokic all listed as questionable on the Denver side of things. So let's just play the game and assume that all these guys are playing, right? Because I think that, that's probably the better thing to do. Just assume they're playing and break it down from there. So if we look at this game, we know that this is going to be a Golden State team that likes to shoot the 3 ball, right? Well, Denver's defense from 3 has not looked all that tremendous. In fact, I can show you in our dashboard, which we haven't even mentioned. I'll tell you in a second how to get access to this. But you can see right down here, Denver, not exactly the best in terms of defending, points allowed from 3, whereas Golden State's very good at that. And you throw in that Golden State's actually really good at defending at the rim and in the paint. That's where Denver, 1, likes to score from, and 2, has been scoring from. There's a lot of angles to be made for this Golden State team, even from a catch and shoot perspective. Look, Denver, not all that great at stopping it, right? Where they're even worse is the pull-up, but Golden State, other than Steph, they don't have many pull-up guys overall. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. I mean, Denver doesn't run a lot of pick and roll, but when they do, they score a lot. This is a pretty good defense against the pick and roll in Golden State. So, a lot of this looks like it could be a good spot for Golden State. One thing that I started to notice, and I know you're probably thinking, 3 ball and Steph, right? Well, look at this. Golden State, over the last 10 games, shooting the second most corner 3 attempts per game. Denver, from a field goal percentage, 42, so almost 43% from the right corner, and then almost 50% allowed from the left corner. So 2 really good looks there in terms of, where we're seeing them allow a lot of points. So if we were to check we can pull this up right now. I can tell you right now who's shooting a lot of corner 3s. Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, like maybe some of those names would be guys to consider here, I guess, in terms of 3s or even points, just because they would be fitting into what we have. I think I'd probably go Moses Moody, but again, we're not going to have many Golden State lines out right now because of the Steph news. So just keep an eye on that overall. Moses Moody probably for 3s or points or something like that. Now, in terms of how to get access to that dashboard that we just looked at, all you have to do is head over to the Guy Boston Sports site, which is that link in the pinned comment, members area, top right? Or it's on the menu on your mobile as well. NBA dashboard, we are logged in, so we're going to see the dashboard pop up right away. You can see it here. You can open it up, and you have each and every game broken out from a visual format and visual standpoint, pulling from a bunch of different sites, aggregating it all so that you guys can save some time, right? Every single game, like I said, broken out. Like this is the one that we were just looking at, right? Where is that Denver and Golden State? Right here, right? You can see how the teams rank in terms of points per game, opponent points per game, efficiency. You can see where they shoot from more often. Forget field goal percentage, just where, like how many times per game, right? And then all of a sudden the field goal percentage, pick and roll, isolation, catch and shoot, player projections via scorepredicts.com. So a lot of cool stuff there over on the Guy Boston site. Again, if you're not a member, you will see this, and it's going to say, hey, membership required to see this. Our membership levels are very, very simple. So we only have the NBA dashboard available right now, but we do have the MLB dashboard coming, and that's available. But I have them both up to show you that this $4.99 per month is probably your move right now, because the minute this MLB dashboard launches, this is going to jump up a couple bucks. But if you get in now, you're going to be able to get both dashboards and any dashboard that comes out year round for that price. You lock in at whatever price you get in at. So yeah, consider becoming a member today. Again, just follow that link in the pinned comment, head over to the members area. I mean, you're getting these dashboards and this dashboard for less than a Starbucks cup of coffee once per month. You know what I mean? So go ahead and check that out. In terms of what we have from a total here, so it's at 236.5 right now. This Golden State team, I would say, is going to be the team today that probably pushes the tempo, but I'm still giving credit to their defense. And though Denver's defense isn't all that tremendous, if Golden State does, like, we're banking on a lot of good shooting from Golden State. What if they don't, right? I think there's more ways to hit an under here than an over. So yeah, if this was at like 229 or 230, like maybe I'd consider an over, but 236.5 seems a little bit too high for me. I'm going to lean slightly towards the under. I think this probably is like a 234 game. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is going to be a very, 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 very low scoring game. I just think that 237 seems a little bit too high. Phoenix taking on Toronto. I mean, I say this about a decent amount of slates because we're picky, right? But this is a weird slate, right? You have some like mediocre teams playing bad teams, laying big numbers today, yada, yada, yada. We do have Toronto on a back-to-back. Phoenix also on a back-to-back. They got beat by the Lakers yesterday, but that was just a messy, I think that game like finished super low scoring, right? Just a messy game overall. So with the injuries that we have, you definitely want to keep an eye on this one. Bradley Beal, the one to note for Phoenix, he's listed as doubtful, but then we have Quickly, Barrett, still have Ingram out, Grady Dick out. I think Walter's also questionable for this Toronto team. I kind of like Toronto. Phoenix didn't look good yesterday. They're on a back-to-back now. In back-to-back situations this season, 38.5% cover rate. When at home this year, 35.5% cover rate. Now, Toronto hasn't been good in terms of a win-loss on the road. We should know that. They've only won 8 games on the road this year. But from a covering perspective, because they get these big numbers, 59.4%. Now, this Toronto team, as of late, you can say what you want about their strength of schedule, right? They've played some pretty doo-doo teams. Like their last 9 games, Chicago, Orlando, Utah, Washington, Philadelphia, Utah, and then they got beat by Portland yesterday in kind of the fashion that we had been saying. But overall, what I would sit here and say is that this Suns team, I don't care if their strength of schedule is good or bad, like they just seem to drop games, and I don't think I'm comfortable with them having to win by 9 points. Like, can they? Sure, they have the better players in the game, but 9 points is a lot, right? So for that reason, I'm out on Phoenix. By default, going to be leaning towards this Toronto team. You throw in the fact that I don't know if I fully trust this Phoenix team down low defensively. Last 10 games, allowing nearly 71% to their opponents at the restricted area. Toronto, you'll be hard-pressed to find a team that shoots more in the restricted area than them. So for that reason, I like Toronto as well. When it comes to the total, I personally have this one projected at a 115 to 110 game in favor of Phoenix. So Toronto covers, Phoenix does still win, and it finishes just under this line. I think that we're going to trust that one. And then there's a lot of back-to-backs. They aren't a back-to-back, so that's a lot to consider. I don't think that I'm going to jump at the bid at any player props as of right now. But if we do add any player props, they will be with the final plays. And because we didn't talk about it, I'll give you a little blurb as to why I like it or something like that if we do add anything in. All right, we got Portland taking on Washington. Portland just played Toronto on the back-to-back they are on a back-to-back as well because, like we just talked about, Toronto played them. Washington coming off of 2 straight wins. They beat Detroit, and then they beat Denver. I don't think they win, a couple of 3 games in a row here, but I wouldn't have said that they'd beat either of those teams either. Now, Jeremy Grant's still listed as doubtful. Walker doubtful. Robert Williams questionable. DeAndre Ayton listed as out. Marcus Smart, Sadiq Bey, Brogdon, Kispert all listed as out. Actually, Smart listed upgraded to questionable. Okay. Either way, Portland 5 points. Yes, they're on a back-to-back. I understand that might not be the best look for them, but with no rest this season, get this. They've covered in 90, not 19, 90% of their games with no rest this year. Kind of crazy. I will throw in that Washington has covered when they have a rest advantage over their opponent in 61.1% of their games, but ultimately this is a spot in which I do think that Portland just can take it to them in the paint. Another spot, if we have the same injuries as yesterday, probably the same guys that I look at player prop-wise. Tumani Kamara, Denny Avadabadu, I do think that there could be, I could get behind looking at those guys, right? Klingon also, you take guys' points or rebounds against this Washington team, he could have a really good game, but he just seems a little, and I don't think that I'm crazy for saying this, Donovan Klingon just seems a little too inconsistent for my, overall liking, right? I think his rebounds line I've seen at 9.5 and or let's see if we can actually get a live line on that. Donovan Clingan here, I've seen it at like 9.5, which again, like, sure, I don't mind it, but this dude, yeah, he had 14 yesterday, 12 the game before, 9-9, 12-7. Like, he's just kind of all over the place, but he is going up against Washington, right? And in late February against Washington, he did have 8 rebounds, 13 rebound chances. And that was only in 17.5 minutes. If we look at his last few games, he's been playing a lot more than that. So if we look at his season and say, hey, go out there and give us, let's say 25 minutes, right? 25 minutes, he's hit it in 8 of his 10. So, yeah, if you like over 9.5 rebounds for Donovan Clingan, I think that matchup fits pretty well. So, give me Portland, him, but I also do still like, Tamani Kamara and Denny Evadabadu. In terms of what we have from a total, another one where I'm struggling to see why this line is so high. We have Portland, who on back-to-backs have hit the under in 70, I think it's 73% of their games. Washington obviously plays fast. Portland has been playing fast, but this Portland defense, I think, should step up in this one. And Washington's offense, I don't see where they score from. So, yeah, I'm going to lean, again, slightly towards the under and throw in those player props that I like as well. Lakers, Spurs. The Spurs team really doesn't have my interest, especially with all of the injuries. Now, the Lakers, ton of injuries as well, but less, ones that matter, right? Like, this is a Lakers team in which their defense their defense looked really good when everyone said it was going to look bad, right? And now they've started to kind of come back down to earth. Now, they looked good yesterday, but let's be honest, the Suns were missing a bunch of shots, just as much as the Lakers were making it tough for them to score. Before that, 126 in Milwaukee, 131 to Denver. These teams that can score inside did. San Antonio, I don't see where their inside scoring is going to come from with the lineup that they have to present. I mean, Paul, Castle, Vassell, Barnes, Biyombo. So all of a sudden you have the Lakers' weakness not really being matched by San Antonio. But I do think on a back-to-back, it just seems like it's a little bit too much. So if this was like 7.5 or even like 6.5, something like that, obviously, I think I would start to like the Lakers. But at 9, even though I've lost interest in San Antonio, I don't really see why I would say the Lakers need to go out there and win by 10 on a back-to-back in a game in which they probably think that they can sleepwalk through. They might get caught off guard here. Do I get there myself? Don't get me wrong. Probably not. Like, I don't think that, we're going to put much on this game, if anything. But I'm not comfortable, and maybe you are, good for you. I'm not comfortable with looking at this Lakers team saying, yeah, go win by 10 on a back-to-back like that with no LeBron, no Rui. Just doesn't seem like it makes sense to me. So again, if this line was lower, then sure, I could consider it, only consider. But with that big line, I don't necessarily think so. The Lakers going to shoot from 3, and the San Antonio team hasn't been like terrible from 3. They've just been kind of mediocre. So if the Lakers shots fall short, they could probably spank them. But I'm just not willing to gamble on the gamble, if that makes sense. Total-wise, this is something that we could get to. I don't mind an over. Like I mentioned, the Lakers, struggle inside, and this San Antonio team doesn't necessarily match it. But the Lakers also really struggle kind of in the mid-range lately, and I'm very, very small sample size. This is a San Antonio team that I do think with Vassell and Chris Paul and even Castle, like, they could get some mid-range action. So yes, I'm nitpicking there, but I don't mind over 228 in this spot. What I would say this is probably going to be is like a 230 type game where the Lakers maybe win by like 6 points. So that 118 to 112, something like that. You know what I mean? And then no major player props. Maybe I could be convinced of of a sell or something like that. But right now, nothing that I'm ultimately loving. And again, we kind of want to wait out the injury report in this one too, because Lakers aren't a back-to-back. Everyone looks like they're good to go with Doncic and Reeves and that type of thing, but who knows as the day progresses, right? It's early in the morning. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Same thing. We'll add any plays and give a little blurb as to why we like it. If we do anything, I should say. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you guys in the next one, right? Peace out.